talking to people who love freedom and understand why it's so important really keeps me motivated. It actually, when talking to people like you, makes me, just recharges my batteries. It makes me want to go out every single day and spread the gospel. So I guess what I want to just talk about are like three basic things. One is why I care about freedom and why I'm running, why I chose the Libertarian Party. Second is what I see this campaign as being about and how I think that we can make a real difference. And the third is just kind of talking about the most important issues that Virginians always talk about and how the Republican and Democratic parties aren't serving the people. So just a little bit about myself. I grew up in Northern Virginia, and I grew up in a sort of not very political family, but a Republican-leaning, fiscally conservative family. I wasn't really aware of a lot of the social issues and my sense is that they just weren't as polarizing back when I was growing up. My family certainly wasn't big into that kind of stuff, but so I kind of just was a default Republican growing up, and I guess college really made me appreciate freedom, and when the year after college, when I learned of this thing called libertarianism, I realized I already was one. And I think that there are two ways that you can really get to libertarianism. One is through economics. I think that a lot of people who come to the LP do so by learning economics and realizing that all the ways that government thinks that they can do better by planning economic activity often does much more harm than good. And the other is just a mix of enjoying freedom and seeing how it benefits you and bumping up against those regulations or seeing your taxes a big cut out of your paycheck, and a little mix of philosophy, realizing that why is it that I don't like having my paycheck decreased by a third? Why is it that I want to do something and someone else is telling me I can't? Is it because I'm trying to harm other people? No. It's because somebody doesn't want me to do it and I don't understand why. And you start looking for that reason behind the regulation. And when you don't see it, then you start recognizing that there's something really wrong with the way we do government. And my mom came from, when she was a little kid, she fled the communists in China, and her family eventually came here in her 20s. And when I was in college, one of my roommates was, I wouldn't know him if it weren't for the fall of the Berlin Wall. He was from the Czech Republic. And I look at these people, and they are the people who most love capitalism. And they've lived under real tyranny, and they just love capitalism, and they understand it at a much better level than most Americans do. And so there are so many things in my life, so many experiences that just make me want to fight for freedom. And I jumped into this race because in some sense I've been preparing it for my whole life, just in terms of the schooling that I've done. In law school, I studied a lot of constitutional law, a lot of economic freedom, and followed the Institute for Justice and all the things that they're doing. And if you look at, just in Virginia, when they attacked the African American hair braiding regulations, that these are things that are small when you look at them in the grand scheme of, they're going after one regulation, but it's really important two ways. One is that people are trying to make a living doing these things, and when you don't give them the freedom to make a living, when you don't recognize their right to make a living in an honest way, that's tyranny. And second, what they're doing is big because they're setting the stage for court oversight of regulations, not on rational basis, but on some higher level of scrutiny. And that's really important because we're going to get people who are more aware of the problems that regulations cause in our lives. So the second thing I want to talk about, I think I said, was the way how I see this race shaping up. And one of the reasons I really wanted to run this year is because the two major party candidates really embody exactly what's wrong with the major parties. So Terry McAuliffe is, of course, a former DNC chair and the money man for the party. And Ken Cuccinelli, I'm not going to say that he's bad on all issues. He's fairly good on some issues, but he's also fairly inconsistent on a lot of them. And he has, on personal liberties, he's just sort of extreme and very statist. So I thought this was a great race to be in because, A, we can make a big difference on the issues that are talked about. So, if I can get into the debates, and certainly every time I'm in front of a camera or in front of an interviewer, I'm talking about things that just aren't being talked about, which includes school choice, which includes drug reform, and all the things that come along with that, militarization of police, loss of Fourth Amendment rights, incarceration rates, and the vast amounts of money that we spend on enforcement. And then crony capitalism. I mean, you cannot trust the Republicans or the Democrats to get corporate interests out of the government and to return to a system of the rule of law. And that's, I try and explain to people why the rule of law is so important to freedom, because you can't have freedom without the rule of law. And when people talk about equality, it's equality before the law, that like people are treated alike. So that's something that really resonates, especially in this race, because we see the Star Scientific fiasco kind of exploding in the Republicans, and on the Democrat side, obviously, Terry McAuliffe is sort of like the poster child for crony capitalism. So this is a great race, and 40% of the electorate wanted a different candidate, and so it's just a matter of getting our message out and getting as many people as we can to know about the campaign. And